Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, organizer Jean-Francois. Thank you for having me. I think that it is brave that Jean-Francois thought about me to be in this meeting because, first of all, I am not a livestock person. So I am coming from the food safety, and then I am a microbiologist by training. And then I am kind of feeling that I am coming from a different field, but in which is actually good thing for the conference, I am sure. And then I'm thinking that I can probably contribute something that is outside of your thinking process, so that could be interesting. Another brave thing is that my presentation may sound like very positive to this new technology, but then, so it can make you think, but then as an FAO, that we are not pros or cons kind of position taking. We are really looking at the fact, and then we are really focusing on the weight of evidence rather than one single study or somebody saying, or my opinion, those do not matter. So for FAO, that it is very important to have a global perspectives. So that's why that I put global perspectives here in the title. And then hopefully that the screen comes back in time. But then before that, I want to just highlight that about this global term. I've been listening with a great interest of all the presentations. And then it's hard to think that, I mean, we are in France, we are in Lyon. So basically that we will be thinking about Europe, no, more or less. But then we heard about Australia perspectives too. So that's a slightly little bit of the international. But then I tell you that the globe is bigger. So I just wanted to give you this opportunity to zoom out a little bit so that you can see other situations than Europe. Basically, for example, I've been Mongolia very recently. That the Mongolia, I don't know if you have ever been there, but then the only thing they have is a desert and animal, period. And then there is no farmer's market to buy vegetables. No, I mean, so this is the reality sometimes that we have to face. And then what do we talk about nutrition? What do we talk about healthy diet? What is this? So we really have to think about larger scheme to think about food security in total. And then another thing that I wanted to tell you about the global issue is about my own background. I am from Japan. So imagine that my grandmother, grandfather, my father even, my parents, the generation, they do eat insects all the time. So it's not at all novel, sorry. We have been eating it like hundreds of years. So don't tell me that insects is new. Also like seaweed, come on, seaweed. I eat 3 times a day. Really, the seaweeds every day. And then soy. I eat tofu and miso and soy sauce. Everything is soy. I even take a soy latte too. So I think that the people have to think about the different perspectives here when we talk about global issues. So this is my good introduction. And then first of all, thank you. Thank you. So first of all, that I want to show you 1 minute video.
Did you know that food that is obtained from animals can now be made from cell cultures? Cell-based food production is one of the innovations that can help us feed a growing population. Cell culturing entails taking cells from an animal and growing them. But how does this work? A small sample of cells from a healthy animal, like a cow or a fish, can yield hundreds of kilograms of food product. Egg and dairy products can also be produced from cells. The cells are grown under controlled, hygienic conditions in a device called a bioreactor, which mimics the body of the animal. Depending on the product, this can happen within a matter of days. The cells are fed a mixture of nutrients like vitamins and amino acids, and are developed into fat or muscle tissue. When the cells are ready, they are taken out of the bioreactor. Some products are grown in the form of slices of fish or cubes of meats, and thus need no further processing. Cell-based foods can be mixed with other ingredients to make the final product before they are packaged for the consumer. FAO is working with members and partners to ensure good practices are followed to keep cell-based foods safe throughout the production process.
So this is something that I just wanted to show you because it is such a compromise that we had to do, because we cannot really simplify things, but we are talking about various different commodities, right? And then we are talking about various different products: nuggets, chicken strip, beef hamburgers, pork chops, you know, like all kind of different things. So production process is different. So we cannot really have one production process explaining to say this is how you make a cell-based food. No. So I think that this is the way that we try to simplify, and then we have to explain this to consumers, because consumers would just take it, oh, this is how the cell-based food produced. And then if one thing is different in one product, people will say like, oh, this is not what I learned. This is different. You lied. So I think this is a very difficult situation in the end. So I'm just trying to tell you that this is the one struggle that we have. And then the second struggle, it is about what's in a name. So the previous speakers already talked about this difficulty of the names. So what's in a name is the question. So what would you call this product that we have been talking about? Some people make kangaroo meat. Some people created some the foie gras, right? And then we don't want to call it foie gras, I'm sure, the French people. So how do we decide that what to call this entire product? That's a big question. And then some people call cultured meat, cultivated meat, lab-grown meat, clean meat, fake meat, synthetic meat. Lots of names exist. And then basically what FAO did was that we collected all the names from the literature, media, regulatory authority, like tons of articles. We just collected, and then we analyzed. And then you know what? If we can do the popularity vote, the number one is the lab-grown meat. That was the popular meat. But then, academia tend to use cultured meat. And then government used the various, but then cultured or cultivated, cell-cultured, cell-based, there are various variations there. Cell-based is not that popular, but then I explain why FAO and WHO decided to use as a working terminology now. But then I just want to bring back to this idea of commodity name. So we use the name of meat, right? Cultured meat or cultivated meat. And then some people don't want to you call it meat. Because I think the previous presentation was clear that it's meat or it's not meat, or, we don't know. So I think basically that the people just didn't want to use this term meat, some people okay. So we have to consider all this. And in addition to this issue, you know that we have 6,500 or more languages in the world. So if we have decided some word in English, for example, and then still translate into something else, for example, in Chinese, we may lose the context of such a great efforts of making, the harmonized term. So we thought like, okay, this is not really good, that we are not really ready to set a term even in English. And then how about cellular agriculture? Does it make sense to you? I wanted to ask in France, because it's a French people who told me that it doesn't make sense. Because I don't know, because, yes?
I have a problem with cellular agriculture for a legal reason.
Legal reason.
Agriculture in Europe is a common agricultural policy, so it means that it would go into that, maybe get cap monessing, so
exactly. Food could be good, right? So this is the discussion. So we had a long, you can see the mark post in the picture too, but then we had a long discussion among the experts. Imagine that no conclusion, basically. There is no one single perfect word existing. And then you know what we found? Nothing is scientifically valid. Nothing is scientific. We are not really talking about science in terms of term. And then we said like, okay, if we want to avoid using the commodity name like a chicken or salmon or beef or pork, then we cannot use cultured or cultivated because it requires to be followed by this commodity name. And then cultured and cultivated could be confusing because for the seafood products, like a salmon, if we call it cultured salmon, sounds like aquacultured salmon. So we didn't want any confusion. So we just said like, okay, cell-based food could be more or less overarching and then could be less confusing. But then you know what? We found that cell-based food is not at all a scientific term because in theory, anything is cell-based. so it doesn't automatically distinguish this particular food products from the conventional products. So it's all difficult, I tell you. But then, you know why FAO spends this much of time talking about terminology? Do you know why? Because it is such an important issue. It is so important, you cannot really neglect, and then you will know later. So, you think it's futuristic product? Do you think? It's futuristic sound, but then it is now commercially available in 2 countries now, so meaning that it's there. So if somebody, for example, me, if I take the Singapore, I mean, I went to this tasting event too, and then if I take this chicken and then bring back to Italy, I could probably. So it can, you know, it's a matter of time that the products start moving. So it's not only 2 countries now that are considering the regulatory approval process. So I think that it will be more coming. So we can say that it's only few countries, but then I'm saying that it's not like future thing, it's now. And then cell line development is done in laboratory setting, but then after the cell line is developed, after that is usually done in the food production processing facility that this development process, they have this new equipment of the bioreactors, of course, but then this is what we don't know, but then I have seen so many companies' facility process, it looks like just a regular food production facility. So it's not future we are talking about. And then we want to just to emphasize that this salmon is actually the cell-based salmon coming in the San Francisco area. And then it looks quite complete, isn't it? I mean, so, and then this is not meat product. So we are talking about more like sensitive issues because it's fish, it's raw, you know, and then it could be looking great. And then we just need to think about what is it now. It's not like something coming in the next years, no. So it's right here. And then, because I am a food safety officer at FAO, of course, that food safety is the most important thing in the world. But then, I am not just saying that because I work in the food safety area, but then I just want to give you this idea that if it isn't safe, there is no point of talking about it, because unsafe things shouldn't be in the market. So, period. So there is no discussion about sustainability, environment, price, anything. I mean, there is no point. So basically, the idea is that let's assure food safety first. And then we can really talk about the real issues. Is it really sustainable? Is it really like a good for our future? Or is it something that could be an option in the future? Or does it replace the current system? So how do we take the balance between conventional livestock farming and then also this new technology related food production? There are lots of super important discussions that I would like to see. But then if we are stuck in the problem of the food safety, we never go there. And then terminology too. If we are stuck with this terminology discussion, we never go to the real discussions that we really have to have. So this is the idea that we want to tell. I want to tell that the food safety is actually an enabler, not a barrier. So I hope that you understand. But then here that I just want to highlight one issue. Food safety, it has, every single topic is important, but then food safety has some fundamental problem. One is that people expect 100% food safety, 100%, no like 99%. It has to be safe 100%. But then, do you think it is real? No food is 100% safe, but then this is something very difficult concept that people can accept. And then anything in the market should be safe. That's the idea that the people have. But then as a scientist, there's no such a thing. And then even like a European greatest effective food safety system, we do have errors here, and then, you know, there's some flaws here, and then some, you know, problems there. But then how do we deal with this 100% safety expectation? And then it can go into these new food production systems too. So it's something to think about, that we have actually already a huge challenge before we even start the food safety management. And then also that the people think that industry, for example, to put in the food safety measures is a cost. You know that, right? I mean, because company, if they have to put the food safety plan, do something about to prevent anything bad to happen, is cost. So basically, if they do better job in a food safety mitigation, food safety issue mitigations, it will affect the price of the end products. So of course, that the companies want to reduce the cost and then maximize the benefit. So there is a balance between them. So for this kind of novel food regulations that exist in Europe, is automatically making those food productions super expensive. So we have to know about this, that when we talk about cost, because there is a food safety assessment requirement which is very costly. So there are a few issues that I just wanted to tell you. But then one question here, why do you think we have regulations? Why do we have food regulations? It's mainly for food safety, isn't it? It is. I mean, we have very restrictive regulations because we want to protect consumers from food safety incidents. Basically, that's it. I mean, okay, of course, there are some other issues, but then mainly that is what the regulations are aiming at. So what I want to tell you is that, okay, we have regulations to protect people. So food safety, see that it's an enabler basically. So that's why that I may look like somebody who is promoting this technology, but then no, I am just saying that the food safety has to be fundamental. Now moving into what FAO has done, this is the timeline that I drew in 2021, and then I moved it as accordingly, because you know what, I am Japanese, so I am very precise about timeline. And the genesis-wise, that what happened is like 2017, my fellow friends from Singapore, the regulatory agency came to me very informally speaking about this issue, that they have received some consultation from the company about this cell-based food products, and then they were asking Singapore that what kind of regulatory requirements exist. And guess what? Singapore didn't have one. And then, so Singapore came, because at the time I was in Thailand, I was working in our regional office. And then I was talking with them, and then they said that, okay, FAO has some sort of guidance in 2017 about cell-based food? No. So we didn't have, and then we started talking about what is necessary, and then we start drawing some timelines so that we have some technical working group with the regulators, we have call for experts, and then we have a technical literature synthesis done, we did the stakeholder meetings, and then we did the super official expert consultation in Singapore in 2022, and then we put together the publication. So this is how the process went. Technical working group, just a few months ago, EU joined, so thank you very much. And then we have very informal discussions about what are the needs for the countries, and then what kind of technical assistance from FAO would be helpful for low and middle income countries. So those are the discussions that we are having. Now WHO joins, so we have FAO WHO joint initiative. And then literature synthesis we did was 3 topics. One is the terminology, second one is the production process, and then third one is the state-of-art synthesis of the regulatory frameworks. And then we have country case studies, what kind of approval systems exist, and then just one conclusion that I want to give is that they are super different, very different. So you think that the EU has novel food regulations, so everybody has a novel food regulations, but no, it's not true. So many countries, actually way more countries don't have novel food regulations. So it's very interesting scheme. But one common thing is that they do require food safety assessment as a first step. So this is something that is very common. And we did the roundtable meeting with the stakeholders. Actually, I am having another one in China this year. And then we'll be having very much frontline information from the developers and producers so we understand what potentially new inputs, new equipment, new media, new growth factors, what kind of thing that they are using, we will understand. We will include the precision fermentation in the scope too, so we will understand better what's happening in the year of 2023. And then about the expert consultation, this is not the opinionated consultation. This is about various experts bring in the already published peer-reviewed articles, and then we talk about the issues about food safety. But then I don't know if everybody knows about the formal risk assessment process. I am sure that some know. But then there are 4 steps in the risk assessment, and then starts with the hazard identification, and followed by hazard characterization, exposure assessment, then risk characterization, and then eventually we can have an official risk assessment. But then number 3, look at this, exposure assessment. It is really necessary to do the final risk assessment, but then we don't have exposure of the cell-based food. I mean, we don't have significant number of people eating these products. So basically what we could do was the first few steps. So we started with the hazard identification. And then, as I explained, I tried to show you the video, but then at the 4th stage, the cell sourcing, production, harvesting, and food processing, we tried to identify the different hazards so that people will be understanding about what could be the common hazards that was existing from the conventional production, and then the potentially novel production. So this is the process that we have done. And imagine that I put 150 pages of the document into 2 slides, so it's not the greatest summary. But then what we found, the experts found, is like, yes, that the inputs, materials, equipment, all kind of things could be new. Some are something that has never been used in the food production. But when we really think about how to prevent, how to mitigate this hazard to become a risk, these methods can be actually common to the conventional food safety measures. So we try to figure out that what could be the really new thing and unique thing. And then we listed few things that that have to be watched out. So if you are interested in the specificity, that please download our documents and you will see the details about what could be something new. But then most of the situations that we found that, okay, this is not immediately posing some gigantic risk to the human health. I'm talking only about human health risk for the hazard by consumption. And then we said that the food safety plans have to be there, and then it has to be rigorous. It has to be specific to the production processes. So we have made some recommendations about what kind of thing that industry needs to think about. And then also that we said that maybe that the mapping of those new inputs, new materials, new equipment, those kind of things would be very helpful to have a data collection. And it's very important, this communication, that we are all a bunch of scientists in the expert consultation, but then if we are not able to communicate what we are finding, this entire thing is meaningless. So we said that, okay, that because we are we are so used to the risk assessment of the food safety issues, we know what the difference between hazard and risk, but then not everybody knows about it. And then hazard sounds like risk. So people may think like, okay, there are 53 hazards FAO identified, and they may think like, oh, there are so many hazards. But then I explain, I usually use electricity as a metaphor. So electricity, this voltage is a hazard, right? I mean, if you touch the electricity, you may die. But then safe installation of the electricity in your house, you can comfortably use the electricity. So that's how you have a hazard, but then you can actually increase or decrease the risk. So this is how it is. So we have to really explain this kind of hazard risk terminology differences. And then we have to keep telling people that the food safety is not something to be taken for granted. Any food can become unsafe at any point of the food chain. And I have 3 documents that are published, which is available on this QR code. So thank you very much.